we've just been using this podcast as something to kind of create more of a buzz and educate and talk a little real estate, talk pain points with homeowners, talk business and so on and so forth. So really just engaging folks. That's why I brought the man, the myth, the legend here in the chair. So
no, small fish.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's like the difference between if I were to just be a regular client or customer, what's the difference between MyHome and like an Angie's List or an online profile?
Thumbtack, and that's our most common question. So we always start with that we're built for the homeowner. So in your Angie's, you have to answer about 15, 20 different questions to be signed up, and that's all of your personal information, and then that's blasted out there as a lead. And so those vendors are now, they get that call and we're like, all right, Jack said he wants some lawn care. Here's his information, go. And now you're getting blown up by 10 or 20. Yeah. All of them are getting charged for that. And it's not really solving your problem. You're getting inundated with those calls. We have our matchmaking process is where you post a job. Our vendors that can perform the work are notified. They're not charged to see that. All they see is your first name and a satellite image of your property, your address. And if it looks like a good job for them, they can throw their hat in the ring. They're still not charged a dime for that. Then you ideally have about 3 to 4 different options as far as who you want to match with and the bids, the times that they put out there.
Gotcha.
And you say, okay, yeah, I'd like for you to come out there, and that's when any kind of charges going to the vendor. It's like your service fee to get them in the door. So
so it just doesn't bombard you with 1,000 vendors. It just kind of basically hand selects, or you guys have a certain number of vendors per contractor, per sub, or
right. And that's why we have it free for the vendor to be on, because we want the more the merrier. We wouldn't want you to post a job and then you're just waiting there and nothing's getting accepted. So how we make our money is through like the DoorDash model.
Gotcha.
Got a take rate of 3%, so your $100 lawn care is now $103. We get the $3, and then any kind of service fee that's in the non-collectible industries for the vendors that we get on that back end. So, and that's $20 here, $50 here, whatever. So we're trying to make it super convenient, valuable, because we are a marketplace. So we want to make it valuable for the homeowner and the vendor with the homeowner in mind. Those pain points being communication, which is fragmented. They're calling one, they don't know who to call, when to call. The payment processing of that, they're paying one in cash, one in Venmo, one in check, regardless.
Yeah.
And then the top quality. They want to ensure quality vendors, and right now they're going to Facebook more so than your traditional Google.
Right.
Hey, looking for recommendations, whatever. Right. So we've integrated something like that into our platform as well, to where we're kind of taking that for them. We're shifting the liability from a realtor to, instead of, hey, here's who I recommend, we're taking that from realtors, and then also for the homeowner to have to take the time to vet the vendor, we're taking that from them as well. So
I love it.
I appreciate it. So that's what we're excited about.
Good, man.
In any case, let's dive into you, man, because we have, and Ken Dog, I just want to make sure you're aware that in this room right now is something of a Brentwood celebrity. Royalty, perhaps, is an even better word. The Jack Montague, Brentwood High sensation, basketball standout, Yale grad and standout ball player there. Had a great stint, had a great run in March Madness. Just happy to have you in this room, man. So I appreciate your time, but just want to hear more about you, where you are now, a little bit about you, some background.
Yeah. Man, I haven't heard many of those accolades in a long time, and Brentwood doesn't even have my name on the wall anymore,
which is ridiculous.
All my personal records have all been broken, which is great. There's been some great ball players to come through.
Very
but
true.
Honored to be here. So I work full time in real estate, and sometimes when people ask me, what do you do, I the simplest answer that I can give them is I do all things real estate, and you and I talked off camera, but I've currently gone through a small transition. So in the past, anything that came across my desk, I felt like I could help someone, I could network. I had someone within my capacity to basically be the match finder. And then I also, was an investor, developer, had some assets under management, and did some residential brokerage. But that was kind of the last 4 or 5 years. And now I can finally say that I've found my niche in real estate. Nice. I can finally put my my hand down and say, okay, I'm a commercial broker and I have a strict focus in land and development. I love it. It's what I do. And then outside of the brokerage side, on the sales side, that's my focus as far as development goes too, and investments. So, we've got a couple partners, and I joined a small brokerage team that allows me to kind of do some things outside of the sales realm. But, the couple projects that I have, range anywhere from 8 to, we did 150 units, up in Madison last year. So as a developer, people sometimes get it kind of confused. I'm not a builder, right? So like, I love the aspect of finding the land, finding the dirt, and having the intuition to say like, okay, growth is happening here in Nashville or in Middle Tennessee. This would be a great location for some townhomes or a neighborhood or single family houses or commercial mixed use, that sort of thing. So I don't do the builds myself, but I really enjoy the development side.
You work with builders often?
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, let's take a step back. How did you go from, being in my eyes, you're a professional ball player, dude. I was telling Ken over here, I was like, man, this was Steve Nash back in high school. In my eyes, at the very least, how do you go from, all right, I'm a ball player, I'm getting my degree, and then it's, I'm drawn towards real estate, which I know you have a couple different things in the mix there that got you to real estate, but talk about that. What got you there?
Great question. For anybody who's listening, it wasn't an easy choice, right? It was one of those where kind of just experience as much as you can, get your hands dirty, try and figure out what you like, what you enjoy, what you're good at, where your strengths are. So I got my degree, basically business administration, went and got my master's in accounting, went down the corporate accounting route, lasted there for less than a year, hopped out quick and got back into real estate. My dad was an electrical contractor, owned his own company here. So that's kind of where it all got started. I would say when I was younger, I was helping my dad out, he did all the exterior lighting for the Titan Stadium. He did a lot of commercial plants and malls and buildings and homes. So that's what got me at least interested in real estate from the start, just being around it, all sorts of different product.
Do agents need that? Is it important for, like someone who doesn't really know the real estate game very much, but maybe just thinks, hey, real estate is a good way to make a good living. Is it advantageous to have that experience that you had?
I would say no. Does it help? Absolutely. Right. Just as far as intrigue goes, understanding, knowledge, experience, that definitely helps. But if you want to get into real estate as far as just being a residential or commercial agent, you don't need to have any past experience. I think, people sometimes overthink that decision or, maybe underthink it, because we do have a lot of agents here in town. But at the end of the day, if you've got good work ethic, you're willing to learn, you can be very, very successful in real estate.
Yeah. Talk about the saturated market that, because I feel like I could, go into the gas station and find a realtor. Hey, who's a real estate agent here? And maybe a couple hands go up. What did you do early on to make yourself different?
Honestly, I probably didn't get started as well as I should have. And that may be an interesting answer, but even now there's so many things that I've learned that I've done right and wrong, to start a business. Because essentially, if you're being a real estate agent, it is you creating your own business. That's right. At the end of the day. Like, you are running your own business. And if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a team, you're cutting your teeth and you got to make and find deals.
You're on your own.
You're on your own. Exactly. So I would say the only thing that really separated me apart is I just had my back against the wall and kind of had that mindset, which I always do. And sometimes you just got to go out and work and do anything that it takes to go out and find your first deal. Because sometimes it takes 6 months, because not only do you have to work to get something under contract, you have to work to get it closed. And now we're, away from the frenzy that we had the past 2 or 3 years in the market. So it takes a lot more effort, a lot more care, a lot more follow-up, a lot more expertise to just really close deals nowadays. So But I don't have a great answer because I did it all wrong. I wish I would have led into more of having a mentor, having a team. I really just joined with a partner, and we just kind of hit the ground running, burned the boats, got out of corporate accounting, and just said, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it works. Sometimes you probably could have grown a lot faster.
That's right.
Which I think I would have, but no regrets.
It's always nice to kind of have that, that pushback, that devil's advocate whenever you're thinking you're going one way and that's the only way and that's the right way. And then you have somebody else to say, well, let's look at it from a different angle. I imagine that's what, maybe if you had that earlier on, you could have seen some of the things that now, much earlier to give yourself the advantage. Kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. And the other thing that I've been in real estate now for 6 years, but I told you I just found like where my niche is, right? So if I were to give advice to anyone who is just getting in, is I wouldn't limit yourself on what your niche or what your environment in real estate is, but I would have a good idea of at least 2 or 3. Do your research beforehand. Like, hey, if you want to be a residential agent, people are like, oh, I want to be a residential agent. Okay, that's great. You've at least differentiated yourself from the commercial aspect, or maybe from wholesaling or real estate investing or building or whatever it may be. Hey, okay, I'm going to go be a residential real estate agent. Well, don't just stop there, right? What I would say is go even further, like find a niche. Are you going to help investors buy and sell real estate? Are you going to, hop into the luxury market, the condo market, like
huge difference.
But what it does is it allows you to have an expertise in that niche quicker.
Yeah.
Right. You're not so scatterbrained. You're not just kind of chasing deals. And sometimes you do have to cut your teeth to get a deal done. Right. But what I would say is if you are getting started, niche down as much as you can without, getting too granular. Cause like what happened with me is I've switched a couple times. I've, transitioned into different roles. So, but yeah, it's always easier if you can kind of go into a business, go into an industry with a good understanding of what exactly you want to focus on.
I imagine you also maybe helped having your current network that you've built, obviously at Yale and Brentwood and here in Tennessee, through your dad's network. Talk about, especially for young athletes who maybe think right now the only path they have is the game of basketball or football or whatnot. How important is it for them to be a salesman of their own brand now, where, when they get to real estate or financial advising, and it's very, important to have the folks, you don't want to call up, Billy May, who sat next to you in math class, who you're a bully to the whole time, now like, hey, I'd love to sell you a house, Talk about the importance of that and how much you were able to leverage your network.
Yeah. Network is huge. I mean, and I think you hit on 2 really, really important points. You said brand and you said sales. And, I think you could really bring that across many different landscapes as far as work goes. But it's like the new industry of business, of work is, okay, I'm Jack Montague, you're Trent Perry. Like I have to build my own brand no matter what work I get involved in. And essentially everything else is sales too, right? No matter what business you're in, you got to sell your business, you got to sell your product, you got to sell your service. Having a network is very, very key in being in sales, right? At least you can start with your warm leads, your warm contacts, the people that you know. Let everyone in your database, in your CRM, in your phone book, no matter what it is, your Rolodex.
Yeah.
Let everybody know what you're doing, what your business is, what your expertise is, and that's the best start. And sure, it helps that I'm from here. I had a base that I could rely on to help me get started. But honestly, and I've told people this too, learn from my mistakes, because I relied too heavily on my network. And what I mean by that is I joined a team, a brokerage, and there's a young guy on my team who's from out of town, went to school out of town, knew no one here, and eventually kind of out-networked or out-scaled me, because he was going to this event, that event.
He was growing the pipeline.
He was growing the pipeline where I relied on people that I already knew, instead of saying, okay, well, hey, here's another young hustler who's doing this, doing that, and kind of going to different events and networking as much as possible. So use your network, but there's nothing limiting you to growing your network at the same time. So is it helpful? Yes. But yeah, it shouldn't limit you to grow.
I feel like you hit on like the difference between being busy and being productive, right? It's like going to a networking event and the real estate agent that leaves out of there with 30 different business cards, but doesn't know, all of their names, doesn't really know what they did, maybe talk to them for 5 seconds. Oh, here's my business card. Oh, here's yours. All right, see ya.
Yeah.
Rather than being at the networking event and just getting real authentic conversations with just 2 folks,
right,
but then booking one-on-ones with them after.
Yeah.
It seems like that's a little bit of what you were touching on, the folks that are, working within their realm, but also getting out and meeting new folks and building that. That's good stuff.
Yeah, great point. And I think that brings another great point with your network, right? And something my mentor and my coaches told me, honestly, more recently than not. But if I'm in commercial, let's take this a little more granular. If I'm in commercial real estate and my goal is to hit a certain sales revenue or have a certain amount of closed deals per year, I think the easiest way to get there is to not have a shotgun approach, right? Like, I'm not going to just go to an event, get 30 cards, reach out to 30 and, hope that I can hit my goals in the shotgun approach way. My mentor told me, find like 10 or 15 or 20 accounts that you can be their professional, right? And know that they're relying on you to provide them information, education, knowledge. Hey, this just closed in your neighborhood. Here's the pricing. Here's a new listing. Those sorts of things, to where you have 15 or 20 people that are closing deals every single year, whether it's an investor, whoever it may be, but you have significant accounts that are always making deals and are always closing. And then, you rely on them to hit your sales targets.
Yeah.
And you can always, through that 15 or 20, pick up a referral. You can pick up other business through affiliates or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is best, just like you said, to take those select few and just be their professional.
Absolutely. Within that 15 to 20, how do you find that person that is, for a fact, like, okay, if this person gets a referral, I know I'm going to get a referral kind of thing. What's your sales process through that? Maybe you just met them, you booked that one-to-one. What does the follow-up sound like? How do you really, foster that relationship to make that ideal referral partner?
That may be the hardest question to answer. I would say a lot of it has to come with experience, right? The goal in sales, and like you said, booking appointments, is probably number one. The one-on-ones, the warm to hot phone calls that you have with your leads, the prospecting with people that you've worked with, people that are tight-knit in your network. But I think at the same time, to finish that point, if you schedule a lot of appointments and meetings, you're going to quickly find out, just through, speaking with them, what type of buyer, seller, closer, deal maker they are. Are they active? Are they in the analysis paralysis stage? I think you can get a good grasp with a one-on-one meeting. But at the same time, I think it's also important to say, like, okay, if I'm cutting my teeth and I have to close a deal, and I know that there are certain things out there, right? Like, hey, so-and-so is selling X or Y or Z. There's 3 things that could be potentially bought. Let me go out and just find a buyer. Let me focus 3 or 4 hours on this one project where it's like, okay, I'm going to send out some mass email marketing, or I'm going to, phone call a bunch of different buyers who have bought similar type of products.
Yeah, but it's prioritizing that one.
That one to go and find that deal. And then when you close them and you treat them, like a prospect, and you're professional, your service is grade A, well, then there's a client for life, right? So sometimes it takes just doing whatever you have to do to get that one closing, to get that one sale. And then, if you do it the right way, which hopefully you are, you keep them for life.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Talk about so it's with the saturation of real estate agents, right? Everyone's getting into it. And what is the common, like, if you make it past year 3, or I think that's the number, it's year 2 or 3.
I think it's year 1.
If you make it past that, it starts getting a little smoother or something like that.
Yeah, I think this was, I think I learned this 6 years ago when I first started, but.
And that's where I'm going, because you said
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah.
How did you get to 6 when you have to push through, right?
Yeah, I think the stat was 90% of first year agents don't make it past 1 year. Or brand new agents don't make it past a year. And now is honestly, weirdly enough, in a market that is not as hot as a frenzy that we were experiencing over the past 2 or 3 years, I honestly believe that if you hop in now, which is a very tough market to do, and not a lot of buyers, not a lot of sellers, a lot of stagnation out there, unless you work for a builder or different things. If you can make it right now and you can close some deals, you are going to be set up for the future.
Good to go.
You're going to be good to go, because it is honestly a very tough market, but competition is getting less. People are leaving the business. I know a lot of people who are leaving because they're finding it too difficult. They're not, sometimes, let's just say you had 10 closings 2 years ago, 8 closings last year, and now you approach a market that's really tough. You rely on your word of mouth referrals. Nobody's buying, nobody's selling. You're paying, your expenses are basically catching up to your income. You're hoping that you're going to make more money. Then all of a sudden you're not. You got to go find another job because you're not closing. And that's what's happening right now. A lot of people are leaving the business. It's something that's pretty easy to keep your license. So I wouldn't say a ton of people are officially retiring their license, but a lot of people are focusing on other things. So if you can get in now, it's not an easy time to join. It's not an easy time to get started.
But if you think you can bear the storm, kind of get through there, you could get to the green side of the grass.
Yeah, and it's tough because at the end of the day, you still have to put food on the table.
That's right.
You still have to feed your families, feed yourself. Keep the lights on at night. But if you can at least have maybe a 9 to 5, like if someone is truly looking to get in the business right now, I would make sure, whether it's a part-time job, a full-time job, you're doing real estate on the side, that you have some sort of income that can balance you out to keep you steady. Because there's so much stress, anxiety in the market now that if you join and you put your 100% confidence and all your efforts, all your time into real estate, you're going to find it very tough. Like experienced realtors are finding it tough.
Mental health.
Mental health. That's right. That's right. But if you can do it in this market, you will be very, very successful if you jump in right now and survive the next year or two.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Very nice. You hit on something there. I had the train going, but I'm losing it. What's your, I guess, actually I do want to jump into the difference between, because you've hit a lot of different segments of real estate. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of folks know that there is a difference, right? You've got residential, you got commercial, you got investing. It sounds like you've kind of had a footprint in all of them, and right now primarily commercial. Correct. Are there major differences as far as knowledge that you need to know, or day-to-day, or anything around that?
There's definitely knowledge discrepancies from each. But honestly, the biggest difference is really what your niche and your focus is. So really, commercial, from like a definition standpoint, as far as residential goes, commercial is just 5 or more units. So if you have, an apartment complex or a quadplex, I mean, those are technically commercial. But what commercial also is office buildings, industrial buildings, major land plays, multifamily, retail, office, those sorts of things. So that's the big difference. And contracts are very different. Closings are very different. But the biggest key that's the difference between residential and commercial is the people on both sides of the table, right? So residential, you're dealing with individuals, whereas on the commercial side, most of the time you're working with businesses.
Yeah, B2B.
And investors. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're learning something, maybe it's golf, right? And you're learning, and you if you have practiced golf as a kid, it kind of sets you up to be a lot better than me, where I didn't play golf as a kid, but now I'm jumping right into it and I suck. So is it advantageous for you to have been through the residential real estate market and then now you're jumping into commercial, or is it, so for the person who maybe just starts right in the commercial, do you have that advantage now that you've just been in a real estate realm rather than, if that makes sense.
Yeah, coming from a different industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a learning curve?
There is a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, to be totally frank, there is. Coming from a residential background, there's quite a few things that would help, right? Negotiations, being able to manage and operate your own business, the communication between clients, follow-ups, all that. I mean, it's essentially sales. They're both sales. Contracts just look very, very different.
That's tough.
Your residential contracts, and that's where the big learning curve is. But I mean, as far as what the process looks like, it's essentially the same. I got to go and prospect. I got to go and find a buyer or a seller. What are they looking for? I got to go and find them, a buyer, or I got to go find them a property to buy. And then I got to get them under contract. I got to take them through the contract to close process, and then you got to get to the closing table. So the business aspect helps with the learning curve, right? I can go from residential and I can essentially know, hey, this is what a process of having a client or having a prospect and taking them all the way through the sales process. But it is very different in regards to, and I'll say it this way, right? So real quick, and not to get off on a tangent, but residential real estate, the value of residential real estate is only really based on comparisons. Okay. So if I've got a house that's in a 50 house neighborhood, the best comparisons to find out the value of that property is based on all the neighbors that have sold in the past 6 or 12 months.
That's right.
Right. So if I can go on RealTrax or the MLS or Zillow or whatever, and I can find what has recently closed, I can at least figure out what would be a good price to buy or sell the house for. Commercial real estate is very different. Very, very different. It's all based on NOI or net operating income, or what is the value, like the true business ownership investment value of that property. If I'm going to go buy a building, let's just say there's 2 buildings right next to each other. One sold last year at $1 million. That doesn't necessarily mean that the exact same building next door is worth $1 million.
Right.
Maybe they have worse lease contracts, or they have, a floodplain, or, there's major renovations that need to be had. So it's very different in regards to what the value of property is. So that's something that when you cut your teeth in residential, you'll soon find out that part is very different. But if you can learn to evaluate properties, if you can learn to underwrite properties, it's not all too different.
Yeah. Do you find yourself having to be a little bit more salesy? I had this conversation with another friend of mine where it's like, is the traditional salesman that is super, kind of, you got to push and you got to get them to close.
Yeah.
Rather than what you've already kind of talked about is building the relationship and getting to know them personally and so on. Do you find yourself having to kind of get into that more salesman mode, or is it important for you to just try to be there for them when they need you, and that more of an approach?
Yeah, great question. I honestly, I felt more salesy in the residential world. I did, because now that I've found this niche that I'm in, I feel more myself, right?
Nice.
So the reason why I felt more salesy in residential is because it wasn't necessarily what I enjoyed the most. I kind of had to put on like a front a little bit to be not necessarily somebody I'm not, but more of just, hey, I'm, look at me, I'm a residential real estate agent. I can help you do this and do that. And that's not necessarily me.
Yeah.
Commercial, just like you were saying, sales can look and be very, very different in today's world. The technology, the social media platforms, how you do your prospecting can be very different. But at the end of the day, I'm reading a book now called Sales Essentially Simplified. And the first chapter opens up by saying sales is almost the exact same, whether you're in real estate, you're helping a Fortune 500 company.
Yep.
You have to find your prospects, and you have to find out what their need is, and then you have to solve their need, right?
Yeah.
So I think we get a little carried away as to what being salesy, looks like or may feel like. But at the end of the day, you're really just trying to help someone accomplish a goal or find a need.
Yeah. Put your residential cap back on.
Yeah.
What were the pain points in your conversations to either find the client to stay with you, to get them to close, especially in this market and markets past? What were some of the pain points you were dealing with?
The pain point that I was dealing with a lot when I transitioned, weirdly enough, was I didn't think it was the best market to help buyers and sellers. And I say that by saying you see a lot of things on social media, on the internet, on the news, wherever, where, hey, rates are high, but it still is a good time to buy a house because you can do this, this, and this. It's not a great time to buy a house right now. Right? Like, there are situations where you can get into a house for, let's say, below market value, or you can get, closing costs or concessions to help you buy down points, to help you with rates or to help you with repairs or whatever it may be.
Still not necessarily ideal.
It's
situations.
It's not. And for a lot of people, when you're in sales, your goal is to make sales, right? Yeah. So if it's not a great time for people to buy, I just felt very uncomfortable trying to go out and get a lot of business, not necessarily lying, but, crossing that black and white line of saying, hey, let's go find you a house. When in reality, it's, hey, save up a little bit of money during this economy that we're in right now. Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, even the best economists can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Save up, put your money aside, put it in a couple maybe smarter, safer investments. Yeah. And then when maybe the rates come down, then it's a good time to buy. And I get that there's more competition when the economy is in a more mild climate. But that was my weirdly enough, that was my biggest pain point. It was just not feeling comfortable helping people when it's not necessarily the best time.
That's got to be a difficult decision because, like you said, you got to put food on the table.
Yeah.
In the back of your head, it's like, if I was this person, I'd probably just wait just a little bit longer. Yeah. But you don't want to lose that client. So it's, right. How often did you find yourself in that position? How often did you just say, you know what, I'm going to do what I feel and, be who, you try to be your authentic self as much as you can, as far as not authentic self, but you want to put yourself in that homeowner's shoes more times than not. How often did you have to make that difficult decision and hope that they see the value in what I'm giving them and they're going to stay with me until the time that they're really going to buy or sell?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, the answer is, but at the same time, you're never in a real estate economy or market where there aren't going to be sales, right? So even in the past year, there's a lot of situational sales where you're helping an investor sell something. You're helping maybe a family that's relocating or a couple that's getting a divorce. So there are forced sales that happen, right? Or maybe, someone just has too many properties and they're looking to sell one. So I did a couple of those, and that's not approaching that black and white line, right? And you just have to do your best to sell the product. But I think the best way to answer that question is you cannot go astray on who you are and what your integrity is. Like you do not need to approach any business and approach the integrity line or lie. Luckily, I was blessed enough to have some investments and side projects going on that I didn't necessarily need that cash or that sales to close. Mm-hmm. So it was easier for me to say and be honest and tell them, hey, listen, I am a realtor. My goal is to help you buy and sell homes, but at the same time, right now is not in your best interest. Mm-hmm. Or hey, we're approaching November, December when it's the worst time to sell. Maybe you should just hold off a couple more months if you can to put your house on the market in a better environment. You have to do that, and
pays dividends. I feel like that will pay dividends in the long run.
It does, and even if you lose a couple clients, more often than not, you're going to keep those clients because they trust you. Yeah, you're not looking what they call commission breath, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing whatever it takes to get this closing so I can get my commission, so I can put food on the table.
And then long game, that client is going to tell their friends, "Hey, Jack took care of me. Exactly. He didn't press me, so you should go with them." Because that's why I feel like that's why everyone's scared of right now is that salesman. Like they don't want to be sold, and they don't want to be swung over. You know, if I walked into a car dealership, they'd probably get my ass because I don't know much about cars, and that's my guard up's going to be up the entire time, rather than somebody I know, like, and trust, who I know is just looking out for me and my vehicle, kind of thing. You know,
that's exactly right. Yeah, you have to. I think the toughest thing in business and entrepreneurship right now in today's world is anybody could really be an entrepreneur, right? But there's not a lot of people who can be an entrepreneur without making sales or closing or getting money immediately, right? The hardest thing to do is have a long-term vision for when you start. And it's, if you can, and this goes in so many different ways, but if you can be truthful, you can be honest, people can trust you, you give them the right advice, the right knowledge, the right wisdom, moving forward on any decision in sales, it's only going to benefit you long term. Because like you said, it's easy for people to just be like, hey, trust Trenton because he did this for me. He really helped me out. It's going to lead to more sales, more commission, more business, whatever. But the toughest thing is, and that's part of the reason why I said you got to kind of have a side job, a side gig or something, unless you know you're going to have some closing soon, is because you get to a point where you either quit or you kind of toe the line of saying, hey, I got to get a deal done. I got to get a deal done. And that's just not the proper way to approach it in my mind.
Do you have a most common question that you've gotten in your 6 years from a homeowner, as far as maybe it's their maintenance, maybe it's about what they should be looking for, or really anything?
Oof. That's a tough one too.
Yeah.
I would probably say most of the questions, because I deal with a lot of investors that really just kind of, and even with homeowners too, the questions are more based around the long-term approach of buying a property, right? So you have, even with investors or first-time home buyers, for a lot of people, they wait too long, or they have so many questions and fears about hopping into real estate. Whether you're, like I said, whether you're an investor, you're a seasoned investor, or you're a first-time home buyer, there's always a little bit of fear and nervousness buying a property. The best answer that I've had for a lot of those questions is really look at your financial situation, right? If you're immediately hopping into this and you're nervous, you're scared, you're crunching numbers, it is never worth it, because there is no amount of money for peace of mind. And I've lost money on deals. I've had some solid deals. I've been tight in a couple of situations where I've been waiting for some investments to close, and there's no amount of money that will make me stay up every night, with nerves. So, and it goes with first-time home buyers too. Like, there's no problem renting. You can get into real estate at 70 years old, close to your deathbed. There's no wrong time or right time or perfect time to hop into real estate, but
it's the best time for you.
Yeah, it's the best time for you. And if there is I don't want to scare people away, and I don't want people to never hop into a real estate deal, because you're going to lose money on a couple. It happens. You're never going to get everything right when it comes to real estate. But if it's one of those where you're clenching your teeth as soon as you sign the dotted line to close, it's probably not the right time to buy.
Do you have some key ingredients as far, let's say you're trying to flip a property, you're trying to get into a house to make your profit?
Yeah.
Are there some key things that you look for to ensure that peace of mind when buying the property? Kind of give us even an elementary based, flipping for dummies. What does that process look like?
The first thing, and you hear this all the time when you listen to people buying and selling real estate, is location, location, location. Now, even in Nashville, there's certain pockets of places where if you can just go and see how long things have listed on the market that are properly priced, let's just, in comparison, East Nashville performs better than North Nashville, right? I would rather, no matter if it's my first time buying a house or I'm a seasoned investor, I'm going to an area where things don't, if I'm flipping a house, that don't sit on the market for a long time. It's very attractive. Then the other thing is what people don't understand is you make your money on the buy of real estate, not the sale.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can go and get a property in a good location for a good price, those are your ingredients to make some money on real estate. Now, if you want to get in the technicalities, the big things that you need to really, really look for, even if you can't look behind, painted walls or drywall, foundation is huge. Roof, huge. HVAC, all your major ticket items, they call them capital expenditures, all your major ticket items, mm-hmm. And the best thing to do is if you're unsure and you don't know, I didn't know. The first thing I did in real estate was flip a house. So hopefully that alleviates some pain from some people. But take a contractor with you. Somebody is willing to walk a house with you anytime for free. There's so many contractors out there who want your work. But are willing to help, and I've learned that over time too. But if you're nervous about anything, bring somebody with you who knows more than you do.
Yeah.
And they're seasoned investors who can see things. Sometimes you just don't know what to look for. So bring somebody with you, find a good house in a good location with good bones at a good price. And I know that's not easy. It sounds easy. It's not, because there's a lot of competition out there. But that's the best way to go and flip a house.
We're hoping to solve that pain point as well, because with MyHome, what we're generating is automatic pull of a home's Carfax, right? So the Carfax for your property, where the last time the walls were touched up, when the roof was last inspected, when the water heater was last flushed, and we're AI driven, so we're able to nowadays with the technology at our fingertips, we're able to ensure that property is just continuing to keep updated, and we're able to give that book to the realtor, the contractor, whatever is needed, and hopefully kind of help with the capital gains of the property. So that's what we're excited about doing as well.
I mean, it's a great point, because when you buy a car, I just bought a truck. It's like one of those things where I know where it was serviced. Mm-hmm. I know what they did. I know how much mileage it has. I know the last time the tires were rotated or changed. I know, has it been in an accident? Has it had anything, that's reported to insurance or whatnot? And honestly, it would be great for homeowners. I think it would alleviate a lot of pain points.
Yeah.
It
influenced your decision to buy, I'm sure.
Yeah. Because the other thing that people not all the time understand is when you're buying a brand new build, there are still issues. You get an inspection on a brand new build, you do a blue tape walkthrough, you do an inspection. There's always going to be countless things. You're
telling me.
Up. So, if you can go and buy a house that's 10 years old, but it's got a Carfax report to it. Yeah, it should alleviate a lot more concerns. For sure.
I won't name my builder, but we are, my wife and I just closed on our new build in October, and myself plus my neighbors are like, why are we seeing some of these issues when this is a brand new house? And we're 6 months in, and we're seeing these kind of, it's also important to make sure you get it inspected by an actual inspector. So that's for sure. What are some other things that you're just passionate about right now that, I know you're someone who likes helping your community. You like helping, educate. I know we've talked about that off camera as far as you're wanting to get out and do some lunch and learns, do some educational things. What's important for you to get out there as you're continuing to brand yourself?
Yeah, I think all of that starts with my faith. I've been getting a lot deeper in that, but it's just kind of grown a need for service in many different ways, through the church, through men's groups, but also just serving my clients. Happy to pass along any sort of wisdom, education that I can. Happy to help people just understand personal finance better, help people understand investing in real estate, how to create generational wealth. Mm-hmm. I love that a lot. One of my biggest passions, honestly, outside of kind of what I do for myself. We bring in outside investors to our developments. We're just trying to help people, grow in wealth in any way that I can.
Could you see yourself writing a book one day? You say you're a book reader.
Yeah, I read a lot.
And it seems like a lot of your experiences could be very nice for folks in black and white. Have you ever tinkered with that idea?
I have. At this point, I don't know, because I think I would be regurgitating a lot of information that's already out there. You know,
Fair enough.
I think
Not from you though. Not from your brain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could probably write a book on failures in real estate. maybe that would help some people. But no, I think the key thing with reading, and I get in a bad habit of this too, or even with writing books, is it's big for marketing right now, and I don't think writing and creating books and knowledge is really helpful for the audience, because I think there's too much information out there. There's too many books. So I mean, I've gotten in a habit too where I read so many books, but then I don't really apply them today, you know, or like I read something and I should take that away, and then I don't use that. I heard someone say it's better for you to like read 3 or 4 of the most prominent, like best books out there, like, proven through history, and then just slowly but surely like start applying that.
Yeah,
so,
start implementing a little bit here and there, you know, rather than shotgun blasting a lot of information and just, that's interesting.
Yeah. Because what does that really do? But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's tough for me. I would love to write a book. I do love kind of that deep work, passion, writing, journaling. I do. But it would have to be, you know, groundbreaking shit. You know, it'd have to be something where like I'm bringing an audience something that they could really take. And at this point in my career, I don't feel like maybe it's a little bit of imposter syndrome. It could be, but I don't think I'm there yet.
Well, you're still culminating a lot of your experiences, especially as you're dipping your toes into the commercial pool now, and now you're able to, you know, and that makes sense to me. You know, you want to make sure you're using your time to the benefit of society, rather than putting yourself on a pedestal where like, no, what I know now, this needs to be out there, right? That's Kenny told me that he needs to write a book one day, because he knows a lot that I'm just fucking with you. But I think we hit a lot of good stuff. Is there anything else that let's say, you know, put yourself on and I asked someone else's question. Put yourself on a stage in front of 1,000 Nashvillians today. Is there anything, you know, and they just said, hey, we want to hear from Jack Montague. Is there anything that you'd want to promote to the public that is on your heart right now?
If I could say anything to some Nashvillians, I will say this about, and this kind of ties into real estate in general. I have while the market and the economy, everything is a little gloomy right now, long term, I've heard nothing but good things about Nashville. A lot of people have said, if you consider Nashville or real estate in general being a baseball game, we're in like the 2nd or 3rd inning for Nashville. I think it's a great place. I've lived here for essentially 25 of my 30 years here on earth, and have seen Nashville grow. I'm a unicorn in many ways, but I really believe in the city. I do development, but I also believe in keeping the traditions of a city. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Nashville. We don't use our river as much as we have. I know there's a lot of big time developments happening along the river. You know, you go to a city like Chicago and you just see how well, you know, the city is developed and expanding and using their resources. And I think we're about to scratch the surface on where that is. And it's just expanding. People have called, that I've talked to who are builders, have compared Nashville and Murfreesboro to Dallas and Fort Worth, if that says anything. So it's the one thing is we're not we have a lot of hills, and you know, we have a lot of rocks, so it's tough to develop sometimes, but bet on Nashville long term.
Love it. Last question. Most difficult person that you have played against in your basketball career?
Oof.
Maybe most skilled, most admired, anything. Top of mind.
Man, I've played against a lot of top talent. I'm going to give you one from growing up.
Love
and
that.
Then one in college. So the one growing up was Kevin Farrell from Indiana. He went to Indiana, played in the league for a little while.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
He was my rival since I was probably like 10 years old. Very, very good ball player. In college, we played in Florida, Duke. But I would honestly say Matthew Dellavedova at St. Mary's.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In college was an absolute stud. Absolute stud. I was also
awesome.
a freshman, and he was a senior. So just me looking up to him. He went and had a great career in the NBA too.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Quick shout out. Can Mario Moore, Asa Duvall, can they guard you today?
No, neither one.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yep. I figured that was the answer to that question. Yep.
Neither can you.
Hey, look, I've looked up to you for a while, brother. Especially on the basketball court. So it's always been a pleasure. As we've crossed paths on the court, I cannot say that I've ever beaten Brentwood High School, which still today pisses me off. We had you at home a couple times when you were still there, when Asa was there. He and I in the same class, but in any case, always a pleasure to have you here, man. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, appreciate it. Happy to do it.
Nice.